uh, positions you for things to get real bad real fast. And I get it. When we're sad, when we're angry, when we're confused or disappointed, it's easy to do a couple of things. Number one, to drop the should bomb. They should know me by now. Or to emotionally short circuit and just say, I'm done, I'm out, and quit and walk away from difficult conversations. Or leap to catastrophic conclusions. You've just ruined my life, and it's really not that critical or crucial. Or to play the blame game. If it weren't for X, we would have X by now. Listen, at the root of all of this is what I deem as toxic thinking. It's negative self-talk about ourselves, about our significant other, about other people who have a different lens on life than us, about the relationship. And as you detoxify your thoughts, you'll find that you'll jump to conclusions less. You'll minimize your unrealistic expectations, and you'll lessen the frequency of losing your temper when conflict does arise. Our toxic thinking prevents us from fighting fair because it positions our partner, our significant other, our adversary, or the other person, rather, as an adversary rather than our ally when it comes to combating the real issues that we're trying to deal with and face. So as we engage in some remediation to rid the toxicity from our thinking, allow me to share a couple of rules with you that can aid you in fighting fair when conflict does arise in relationships and conversations. Number one, you got to choose the rational over the emotional. The body's method for managing stress is to initiate this fight or flight response. And so when we experience anger, fear, it's not that we lose it. It's just that our bodies release adrenaline and we react accordingly. And so our toxic thoughts can cause strong physical reactions. And so it's important that in those heated situations, we count to 10. And I've discovered, Santita, that it really works. It's helped me from chopping people's heads off. We can
not you.
Yeah. Little.
I mean, but does that really work? Really?
It really does work. It gives you a moment because our brains process things so quickly and we can jump to the negative so quickly. It gives us time to realign the story because often what we think we heard isn't what we heard. How we perceive that someone said something isn't the intent that they had behind it. So it gives us the opportunity to hit the reset on our processing process. To reevaluate things and approach the conversation of the person in a much more calm manner so that we can work towards resolution. And I've often discovered with couples especially that when you remind yourself that that other person is God's son or God's daughter, that can really impact how you respond to them, what you call them or what you don't call them, what you say to them and what you don't.
See you, Dr. Deborah Reddy.
Second thing I want to challenge us to do is to take the toxic off the table. Eliminate yelling and slamming doors and throwing things and punching walls and name-calling as options. You can't consider those negative behaviors as options if you want to reach a place of positivity and a place of conclusion, positive conclusion. These actions could be interpreted by the other person as intimidation and elicit a defensive behavior. Number three, you've got to know what you're fighting for. Stop trying to be the winner of the argument. Winning or losing isn't really important in relationships that matter. Are you treating each other fairly? Are you treating each other with respect? That's the key. The goal should be to defeat the problem rather than your partner, rather than your significant other, rather than the other person. Fight for a resolution, not for a win. We've got to, fourth, make the criticism constructive. Toxic thinking is really toxic criticism about what the other person is doing, what they did to disappoint you, or what they did to hurt you. Fifth, and finally, you've got to claim your contribution. Any problem between you and another person is a result of your combined dynamic. Yes, you do have a role in every problem. And when you accept some responsibility for the problem, you and the other person, you and your significant other, will find a way to find some willingness to cooperate and to work together, which will then open them up. Listen, it takes two to fight fairly. And I want to challenge us today to recognize that we have a role to play in how things work out. We can move to a place of peace, or we can move to a place where we're always in the state of panic and crisis. You've got the choice today, and you got to recognize that you can fight, but you can also fight fair.
Let me ask you this. That is a brilliant insight as we are in this social and personal turmoil. What we're dealing with here in Chicago and really all around the country. In Minneapolis, St. Paul, I mean, virtually a lot of things have not changed between the citizens and police, for example. And of course, we pray for the family of Officer Ella French. I mean, only 29 years of age, only 29. And the officer who's in the hospital fighting for presumably his life.
Correct.
What is our takeaway? How do you apply this just very quickly, in these, socially, I mean,
Sure.
because Dr. King preached nonviolence, not just as we, not just as a group, but he said personally, you have to relate to each other with love. You have to do that, and we don't do that.
Correct. There has to be, Santita, relationship before there can be discipleship. We have to get to the place where we value each other as human beings, accepting the fact that we all have a different lens, a different filter by which we view life and situations and circumstances. We all bring some level of baggage to our interactions, our conversations. And again, that impacts our lens and our filter on life. And so once we move to the place of having relationship with people, that's where we get to go beyond the surface, get to see who they are at their core. And when we understand people at that deeper level, even if we have a different lens and take on dynamics, on situations, even if we look at data that's presented and still see it different ways, because I've got relationship with you, that builds in some level of bond where we can agree to disagree, where we can agree to respect each other's lens and perspective and opinion, but then create some concessions that will help us see beyond the issue at hand to the larger picture of things and relate to each other as human beings to be able to move forward with some level of positivity to our interactions and our relationships.
Amen to that. And that starts with relating to yourself, everybody, right? Treat yourself kindly. And it's amazing. You might start treating other people with grace and dignity too, but we have to do that because we're struggling right now, Pastor and I. And I want you to stay with me for a hot second. You can have someone who means a whole lot to us. We have, of course, Dr. Deborah Holden, who's with us every day. We're always so glad that she is with us. Brilliant epidemiologist, one of the world's most renowned epidemiologists out of Johns Hopkins. And she's building the School of Public Health at Michigan State University. And T.O. Hardeman. Now, many of you might know that he's an actor, handsome gent that he is, but he is also one of really he's our Chicago treasure, but he does belong to everybody. Indeed, he's executive director of Violence Interrupters. Whenever you see pain in our community, you're going to see T.O. Hardeman there because he loves us that much. You don't get rich doing this sort of thing. He could be in Hollywood right now, but he chooses to stay here in Chicago with us and wherever people need him, everywhere. We thank God for you, T.O. Hardeman, sending you so much love today. We are really struggling right now as we look at the life of a young lady, 29 years of age, that was snuffed out, in a community that is under siege, quite frankly. Inglewood, there was a study that came out a couple of years ago that showed that there is a glaring disparity between Streeterville, which is an affluent white community here in Chicago, and Inglewood. And where you live can determine how long you live. If you are in Streeterville, you can live to 90. If you are in Inglewood, you live to be 60. Wow. That kind of gives us some context, Tio, for what we're looking at. Doesn't give us an excuse, but there's a lot going on here, and we've got to talk about that here on the Santita Jackson Show. As we talk with Dr. Deborah Holden, who has said that, racism is a public, how we interact with one another unfairly. That's a public health issue. There's a lot going on here. So we're going to talk about that on the Santita Jackson Show. And I want you to call me, give me your thoughts about what's happening with this case. We see that 2 young men have already been arrested. Um, what's going on, everybody? I want to get your thoughts today. Don't want to fix the blame, want to fix the problem. Want to find out what your thoughts are. Call me, 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. Let us talk about police killings in Chicago, the police killing, the police shooting, and where all of this is going to go. Want to know what you think? Yeah. Joyce Anderson, Streeterville versus Inglewood. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. If you're in Streeterville, you can live to be 90. If you're in Inglewood, 60. It's not right. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Hey.
The history of Air America.
Let me give a special shout out to Chapearl and to Barney for getting me up on the air today. Sending them much love. And Jewel, thank you for always passing. Thank you for sharing this show on Twitter every day. Bless your heart. Love you, Jewel, and appreciate you. And I love everybody this morning. Want to thank you so much. I've botched things, and Marnie, Dr. Reeves, and Chapearl, Mrs. Wells, were intent on getting me up today. So I want to thank them, because without them, I wouldn't be able to do this every day. I just wouldn't. Francis, sending you much love. Kenneth and Kenneth D. and Fatou from the Gambia. Love it, love it, love it. We already have Vanderlei from Brazil with us, and we've got Barbara Bacon representing Oak Park. Love you. Hey, how about that? And we've got Andre from Mighty Mighty Chicago. We've got you from all over the place. Dawn is from Waukegan. Everybody like and share. Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia. Sending everybody much, 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 much love. Raphael from down there in Brazil, sending you much love. All this love. So everybody, please like and share, because I know down in Brazil, you struggle with the police too. Wow, you really do struggle with the police. I mean, this is the blackest country outside of Africa, Brazil. So there's a lot that we've got to look at today. Dr. Holden, how you doing today?
Good morning. I'm doing great.
Okay, and T.O. Hardiman, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good today. I appreciate being on your show this morning.
Oh, look, it's always a joy to be with you. Thank you. There's a lot going on. I saw more than a dozen police officers turn their back on the mayor yesterday. So I want you to let me know what your thoughts are about all of that. There's a lot. There's a lot going on here. But this is something Dr. Deborah Holden talks about all the time. Just how, our social problems, cost us our lives, actually. So it's something to look at today. So I want to send everybody all of. I can never forget you, Lorraine, Chapearl, Marnie. Help us to get this thing going every day, and I want to thank you all so much for that. I want to thank you, Dr. Deborah Holden, for being with us every day, come rain or come shine, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter what's going on around you, whatever city you're in, you're always with us, and I want to thank you for that. Even as she's about to become a grandma, T.O. Hardiman, I think if you see her, you just might fall in love, honey. And she's about to become a grandma in about 2 days.
That's right.
2 days. And I think she's going to be one of these grandmas. She might leave her children behind. That's what my parents did. My mother said, well, you all don't matter anymore. She said, we've done everything we can for you. My father made a beeline for little Jonathan when he was born. That's all. Every time he came home, because Jonathan was, as you know, across the street from my parents. And he would just stop at the house. I was like, look, you all better be careful. He's going to take up a room.
That's right. That's one of my good friends, Brother Jonathan. That's right.
Oh, my goodness. Well, he sends his love to you today.
Appreciate Brother Jonathan, for real.
Oh, no. That's how he loves you to pieces. So we're going to get right to this, because we want to talk about this today. A lot of people have a lot of
35 seconds.
It's all that you
Caller on the
do.
line?
Okay, we have Anita.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'm going to go to these people first, and then we will go to the callers. So call me or text me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278, and we're going to have a police
15
officer,
seconds.
a retired police officer, out to talk about this issue as well. So we're going to have a pretty full show, and I want to get your thoughts. I want to hear what you're thinking today.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, Tuesday, August 10th, 2021, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. I want to hear your thoughts about the killing of Officer Ella French and these two young men who've been arrested in her murder. What about the third man who bought the gun in Indiana? This goes to all of this gun trafficking that we have across state lines. There's a lot going on, everybody, and we need to talk about that. On the Santita Jackson Show. I mean, and tensions are high. More than a dozen Chicago police officers turned their backs on Mayor Lori Lightfoot, literally. Yesterday. It was a brazen display, and it was at the University of Chicago Medical Center. They were holding vigil for an officer who was injured in the shooting very seriously. Well, they literally turned their backs on her. So what do you think about that? Let me start with you, Hardiman, because you're on the ground here. What do you see?
But what I'm seeing, basically, Santita, a lot of people have to understand, in order to really reduce gun violence in Chicago, we must deal with the culture of gun violence and the tribalism that takes place with a certain segment of the population in the African-American community. So let me explain. Now, first of all, the officer, Ella French, there was no excuse to kill that lady or shoot the other police officer. So that has nothing to do with the culture of violence in Chicago. That was just an individual decision to take the life of a police officer. That was dead wrong. Just let me make that clear. Now, as far as the police turning their back on the mayor, a lot of police do feel that the mayor turned her back on police officers here in Chicago based on a lot of the laws that have, a lot of the policies that have changed. Put it like that. Police cannot pursue somebody on foot. They cannot, kind of chase somebody in their cars. The police feel like a lot of their, rights to kind of like really try to protect and serve have been taken away from them. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of evidence out there that some police cross the line and they hurt people due to excessive force, police brutality, and police corruption. But that's a small percentage of the police department. With Mayor Lori Lightfoot, she just does not have the backs of the officers. That's the way a lot of officers feel. I just leave that where it's at, okay? So to come back with the culture of violence, see, with some people...
But let me ask you, this before you proceed, because you bring up something very important. Because she was elected, really elected her, right? I mean, this is what we saw with Yusuf Hawkins, with Mayor Dinkins in New York more than 30 years ago, right? And so the demand from the citizens was that she do something, that she institute some police reforms. She inherited a mess. So I'm trying to find out, they feel that because it's, if you make any reform with the police, you can, you get a lot of pushback. I get it. It's a very, very tough job. That having been said, these are some of the things that people were calling for, T.O. Hardiman.
Well, the people were calling for the changes without a doubt, but you have to understand, Laquan McDonald, when he was executed, we'll just say he was executed, assassinated, murdered, or whatever the case may be, a lot of people won. They won their office based on Laquan McDonald. That does not mean they were qualified for that position. So it's not just so much, and I don't want to come out so critical of the mayor, but I just want to state some facts here. The mayor might be a little bit over her head because right now The homicide rate in the high level of shootings in Chicago is just taking precedence all over the place. Over 460 people have been killed to date in Chicago. Close to 2,700 people shot so far this year. Carjackings continue to rise. Mm-hmm. When all the looting and all the rioting was taking place, the mayor, she did not make a decision to stop the looting in Chicago. Now, some people say, how do you stop the looting? She was supposed to call in the National Guard immediately. The first day the looters were out there, she should have made an executive decision to bring peace to Chicago. So there are a lot of issues with the mayor right now that she really needs to listen to different people sometimes and change her strategies. What I'm hearing from a lot of people, she's just stubborn, kind of hard-headed. She's not open to bringing new players to the table. So you cannot just be politics as usual. So I'll leave that there when it comes to the mayor, because she's done some good things. She inherited a major problem in Chicago due to the pandemic. I understand all of it.
The police. I mean, this is a problem that every mayor deals with. I mean, just everyone. I'm just, like I said, I'm just, and no one is perfect. Nobody does things 100% the right way. And maybe she should bring some more people to the table. But I think we have to acknowledge that we're living in a depression. When you talk about looting and whatnot, people are not eating, T.O. You know that better than anyone. That's why, I brought up, the fact that we are Inglewood. Let us not forget that this is a besieged community, everybody. This community they are a generation behind in terms of their life expectancy. Living to 60. Well, another community in Chicago lives to 90.
It's a major issue, Santita, due to the fact of the quality of life. Inglewood, at one time, they probably had about 50,000 residents. Inglewood, the residency has dropped to around 24,000 residents right now, due to a lot of reasons, like a lack of education, poor economic, situations going on in Inglewood. Drug dealing, the gun violence, a lot of dilapidated business. But you do have a lot of good things happening in Inglewood. Mm-hmm. But I understand how the life expectancy is only 60 years old in Inglewood due to a lot of reasons. Diabetes, health reasons.
Oh, yeah.
Let's say the gun violence is really number one on the list, though. Number one.
Mm-hmm. But you know what? Let me bring up Dr. Deborah Holden, because she's someone who we need to bring into Inglewood and bring into Chicago, because she's one of the world's most renowned epidemiologists. And her father was a police officer, by the way. And she's between Baltimore, Washington. So she has seen, people who've had money, people who've not had money. And so I want to talk with you. I mean, when you hear, and you deal with a lot of gun violence in Baltimore, which is where you've been, and you see a lot of pain in Flint. And when you hear about this life expectancy gap in this community where this killing took place, in Chicago, what does that make you think?
Well, it's like that all over the country. In Baltimore, it's about a 20-year gap between the area called Upton Druid Heights and an area called Roland Park. And as you can imagine, Upton Druid Heights is one of the areas that has the highest rates of violence in the city. And like Theo said, in Baltimore, it's really interesting. And I had the main goal to get my black son to 25. The distribution, if you look at life expectancy, whole distribution for young boys, where their risk of death starts to go up as they age and approach their early to mid 20s, and then the risk of death goes down if we can get them through that period. And so that's unfortunate, because a lot of people, and he talked a bit about this, culture of violence. Most kids don't have a say where they're born. They don't have a control over what neighborhood they grow up in. They don't have a say over what resources their parents have. They don't have a say over, how they're taught to solve conflicts and resolve problems. All of these things are hoisted upon them. And when we see little kids, all we see is possibilities. Oh, he's so smart. She's so this. Oh, that one's so creative. Oh, he's so talented. And as they start to age, we shift our expectations of them we stop seeing them for their possibilities, and we start seeing them for their mistakes, for the shortcomings, and some of these other things. And a lot of these communities, just if you grew up in some of these places, people will have a better understanding. A lot of the work that I did in schools was around trying to work with kids with aggression. And I ultimately said, this makes no sense to me, because how you all are defining aggression, if some of these kids don't have a certain degree of this, they will be chopped liver in the neighborhood. Like, there's a certain amount of just ability to handle yourself that is protected. But a lot of my colleagues at Hopkins were like, oh, well, that's early aggression. And I said, y'all got to do a lot more work to understand the environments from where people come, the influences they have, the culture around them. And it was interesting to watch some of my colleagues just go the way of just sticking with what they're getting and publishing in their papers. Something altogether different to walk with colleagues who then rolled their sleeves up and we did the work. We have multiple Safe Street ceasefire programs in Baltimore. And I'm proudly one of the people who helped to get those programs stood up a couple decades ago. But we know things that work. And we oftentimes just don't invest in those things. The violence interrupters that we were working with, there were things that they did that they and they alone were uniquely qualified to do. There's no amount of training, schooling that you could have given me that would have equipped me with the skills and the credibility that these guys had to do this work. Yet the biggest problem we had in Baltimore is everybody would say, rah, rah, we love this. We know we need people down on the ground floor, people who have street credibility, people who already know people who, when things happen, they can get in there and intervene before things spiral out of control. Yet they didn't want to pay them for all of those unique skill sets that they would bring to the table. My colleagues with all the D's in the names, the PhDs, the MDs, the ODs, all of that, they wouldn't work for what they, thought that they less than what they thought they were worth based on their credentials. But we oftentimes have solutions, but then don't value the people that are doing the work. We saw that during COVID, where we started calling food workers essential workers. We have never thought of those people as essential, ever. You never thought of your Uber driver as an essential worker, or the girl working in the grocery store. And then we realized in times of crisis just how important and essential some people are. I think it's time for us to have that same reckoning as we talk about real strategies to prevent and reduce violence. And what I always tell people is, you're not going to do it with pastors and police. It's just not going to work that way. And is there a role for police? Of course. Is there a role for pastors? Yes. But it's going to take more than pastors and police to deal with our real issues around violence in community.
Well, it's a deep, deep, deep thing. You know what? Let me bring in some of these callers, T.O. and Dr. Deborah Holden. Okay. Call me. Yes, T.O., before we get to the callers very quickly.
I was going to say, I appreciate the doctor. I did some work up there in Baltimore in the Cherry Hill community, and doctor, she's definitely right about how the violence interrupters are uniquely qualified to do and understand the culture of violence within our community. So I just want to salute the doctor there, because we did our best to help try to reduce some of the gun violence in Baltimore, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's
one of our heroes from that program was just killed about a month ago.
Right, I'm familiar with it. Yes, indeed.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Well, you can't have T.O. He's ours, but we'll let him come to Baltimore. He can go wherever else he wants to go, but he belongs to us here in Chicago. Yes, I'm greedy. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. There you go. Let me go to Linda. Linda, what's on your mind today? How you doing? Linda?
I don't think she's at the phone.
Okay, Linda, you want to turn down the radio, okay?
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Linda. What's on your mind today?
Hi.
Hey.
I am calling. I am calling because my opinion, I really respect some of the brothers that came on, and they hit it right on the head. But we, as Black people, really need to respect each other. Mm-hmm. We disrespect each other, and it's been going on too long. And in our community, I have been calling the mayor, and I have been making a lot of suggestions because I'm not on Facebook and all this other stuff that is happening. First of all, the police, I understand it's not pointing. They're pointing too many fingers at the police. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of us doing a lot of shooting, which y'all see that because you see it on the news and everything else. Mm-hmm. We need to really look at our brothers and sisters because it's getting out of hand here. I'm not trying to point fingers at anyone, but what I'm seeing in our community, that we're not respecting each other. We're doing crazy things. We're having our churches running wild and everything, and no one is not doing anything, even the parents. Mm-hmm. And I heard a long time ago that it takes a village to raise children. That's true. But we see things and we let it go by. We're not doing enough for our family. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. It starts from the family. Once our family grows up and stuff and go out here and do these things, and we don't even have no type of rules. What happened to the rules? We don't even have rules for our mayor. The mayor don't even set rules. Nothing. We don't have anything. We out of control here. And I'm so sick of it. And this is why our children is out here. We get our education and stuff and leave the other ones behind. We do not go out there and reach back and try to help them. They need help. Please, the orders is listening to me. They need help. I don't care what nobody say. There's some of them cannot read. They're out here doing all kinds of things out here. And it really hurts my heart. Mm-hmm. If I can just win the lottery one time, a big lottery, I would try. I may not can help all of them, but I can pull some of them out of there.
But you know what, Miss Linda? No. You have a lot to say, and I don't want you to leave yet because I don't want you to leave this upset. And I can appreciate your heart and your love for our community. Whether you live in Inglewood or not, we're all Inglewood today. We're all one, and we're all Ella French's family. We're everybody. Nobody likes this. Nobody likes seeing these young men arrested. Of course, you want them arrested if they've done this.
The women too.
Yeah, I mean,
women's doing it too.
I got you. So what would you recommend? Because it seems that, well, I'd like to know what you recommend because it seems that we have a generation of young people who can't be corrected. When you tell a young lady.
They can't be corrected.
Well, no. When I say that, I'm only saying, well, Miss Linda, just walk with me for a hot second. When you say, you know what, young lady, you shouldn't wear such provocative clothing in public, right? We will say that we are so-called slut-shaming someone. And it's like, respectability politics. I'm like, no. This is not respectability politics. I want you to be respectable. I mean, a lot of stuff that we are doing, to me, is out of order. But it's like when you try to correct, there's a whole different culture and language around your correcting, your talk, you're condescending. I'm like, I'm not condescending. I just want to help you. Miss Linda, where do we go from here?
The thing about it is we have to set rules. Mm-hmm. If we don't set rules, everything is going to be out of control. If I don't have no rules and stuff and I can do whatever I want to do, oh, yes. Hey, there it is right there. The thing about it is we need to set rules. We don't do that. We don't even have rules in our community. And if we do, we don't abide by it. Our mayor don't even abide by it. We disrespect the police. Oh, come on now. I remember in my days, you could say something to a police and tell them, and they be really nice to us. I'm not saying all of it because we got some out there. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the good ones. And we need to really take our community back. We need to stop up here trying to putting our fingers out there trying to get help. We need to start at home. We had truant officers and stuff like that. We don't have that no more because you would know who they are when you have these people in schools and stuff like that. We don't have anything. We have Pookie, Julie, and all this on the community, tearing up the community. The community know who is who and everything, and everybody being silent. I don't understand that. I remember I used to see people used to step on people's grass and they say, no, don't do that. Don't do that, baby, because we want our community to look decent. Mm-hmm. Anytime you see a community looking all ragged and stuff, that means that the community is poison.
Well,
it's poison, and it's too much.
And
it's too much, and I'm so frustrated. I get so mad because I see our families and our friends. They even allowing their children to get wild, and no one is not saying nothing. What happened to the rules? What happened to it?
Well, T.O., stay right there, Miss Linda.
Threw it out the window.
Miss Linda, stay right there, because I'm not going to let you get off the phone this upset. And, I want you to stay right there. T.O., why don't you respond to her? Because I think about my own parents. When I was born, I'm my parents' eldest child. When I was born, my parents didn't have a place to live. They stayed with the Halseys because they were students in Greensboro and they had no money. And when they were finally able to get a place to live, T.O., we lived in a housing project in Greensboro.
Yeah.
And my mother planted some flowers, in that little patch of grass that was just outside of their unit. And she made curtains because she said this was where we were starting. This is not where we were going to end up. We're not ashamed of it. But that was our first home, right? And when my parents moved into the place in Washington, because they have a home there, it was not the neighborhood. This, Dr. Deborah Holden, that it is now. It was, right? That's where Howard University is, and it was a poor community. And what my parents were trying to do was they did the same thing. They got an old, dilapidated house and fixed it up. And I just wonder, you hear the pain that Miss Linda is in. You hear the pain that she's in because she's like standing there helpless, like, what's happening to our children? What's happening to us? I've got 2 minutes before we go to break.
Yeah, Santita, what I want to say is that Miss Linda, I feel her passion and her pain.
Yeah.
The reality, the culture of violence it runs deep with a certain segment of our population. And we might go back and forth with this, Santita, but I said this before. There's a need for a black army right now to hit Chicago. I'm not talking about going out there taking lives, but a black army to reach the young people in our community by any means necessary and bring them to the table of peace. The culture of violence with a certain segment of our population, it dictates a violent response. Like Dr. Deborah was talking about, in the community, there are rules and policies that people abide by in the community, and it's not right. We have to change the culture. Some people have been conditioned to hurt one another. The spirit of revenge is very high. And I have a model that we can look at over in Liberia when they had the children soldiers, the teenage soldiers. After the Civil War in Liberia, the men had to go back and help them young people transform into regular citizens again. There was so much pain. So many people were killed over there in the Liberian War, okay? We had to go there. There's an African solution. I appreciate the doctor. Again, I want to say this because you have all these PhD people. I have my master's degree and all that good stuff, but these PhDs, they want to try to get in different lanes and do research on what's going on in the black community. We need black men and women to step up like never before in Chicago, hit the streets about 5,000 strong, bring these people to the table of peace and help change the culture. And there's tribalism going on. You have to talk to the brothers that kind of oversee some of the tribes and the cliques in Chicago, bring them into the conversation as well. And for those who do not want to cooperate, that's where the Black Army comes in. It might be too deep for the audience, Santita, but I'm just being straight up as a black man as far as what I see that's needed right now to get these young people the help they need, okay?
Well, I want to hear what T.O. Hardiman, he is a violence interrupter. He's the executive director of that program. Of course, you've got Dr. Deborah Holden, epidemiologist. Public health, he said this is a public health crisis, and it is. And you're seeing it in the numbers. If you live in Inglewood, you have a life expectancy of 60. If you live in Streeterville, you have a life expectancy of 90. And this is where all this is. When you hear Miss Linda's pain, that's where this is coming from. So I want to hear from you. And I promise you, Elle and Anita and Is it Shaquila or is it Shaquilia? I'm going to find out in a minute. I want to find out what you're thinking. I mean, and this comes on the heels of this information uh, that 1 in 5 young Americans are either working or studying because of COVID. You've got 10 million jobs. You got 8.6 million people who need jobs and 10 million jobs that need to be filled. There's something going on here. We need to talk about that. And I want to hear from you. So call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278, and let us talk about this. You can text me at that number. Thank you, GWC Injury Lawyers. But I want to hear from you. We're going to have former patrolman, retired patrolman, Chapman with us in a hot second from the Chicago Police Department. We want to know what he sees. There's something that's going on, and you hear it in Miss Linda's passion, in her pain, and we want to talk about that today. And Elle and Shaquila, I want to get your name right. You'll correct me when you get on the air, and Anita and everybody else. We're going to talk about this on the Santita Jackson Show back in just a few minutes.
This is attention.
Can you turn that down, hon?
A federal.
Thank you. Dr. Deb, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, how long will you be able to stay with us?
I have a call at 8:30 my time, so
Okay.
I have a little time.
Okay, very good. Tio, you going to be able to stay with me?
Yeah, I'll stay with you about another 30 minutes.
Okay, very, very good. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you all closing comments at the top because I have limited call-in lines, and I know a lot of people want to call in, but I want to get your thoughts. Deborah, we have got to delve more deeply into this life expectancy gap.
Okay.
Okay, and Tio, I'd like for you to be part of that conversation too. But I felt that, we couldn't.
It happens everywhere. There's a study like that looks at Brownsville versus Manhattan in New York.
Oh, yeah.
We've got the study in Baltimore. There's one that was in DC. In DC, it's the worst in DC because the distance is like 1.5 miles, 2 miles.
Well, DC children.
In Baltimore, it's about a 3.5 mile gap difference. So about 3.5 miles, you lose over 20 years of life expectancy.
Well, remember, the White House used to be in the ghetto. Okay?
Yeah.
No, wait. First time I saw the White House as a little girl, I was little like, wait a minute, there's trash over here? People do not give Marion Barry the credit for changing that town the way that he did, but he did do that.
The people in D.C. do.
No, trust me, because Murmur Bird. Look, honey, I in there. Come on.
Jackson?
Yes.
Is it okay if I drop Linda? Because our lines are full except for one.
Yes. But let me say goodbye to Miss Linda, okay?
I'll bring her up right now.
Okay. Miss Linda?
She's up.
Miss Linda?
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. I just didn't want to let you go without hearing you sound a little calmer. That makes me feel better, okay?
Yes, I'm just kind of tired of it.
No, it's okay.
I just want our people to grow. I want our people to grow up and be strong and stop being weak in weak areas.
Well,
water on you so you can stand up.
Miss Linda,
grow like a flower.
I think we're also a damaged people. And I think that when we understand
we are damaged.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean we're damaged goods. Doesn't mean we're damaged goods. But there's a lot of pain here. And I think, we just have to acknowledge that. Yeah.
Because we can do better than this.
Well, we can.
Our people can do better than this.
We can do right.
We got some beautiful We some beautiful people. I'm telling you, I know, talking because I see it. And we don't have to do this. We don't have to do this. We don't have to show the nation that this is how we are, and that's not true.
Well, just very quickly, because
we don't like that.
I hear you. I hear you. Miss Linda, Close Mate, would you take Miss Linda's information? Would you mind if because I'd love to have you come back on the show with a panel, Miss Linda. Would you mind doing that?
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Well, no, well just think about it, okay?
I am a very private person.
Well, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, I have teenagers in college and stuff, and they on the right track, and I'm a single mother.
Okay.
And I got 4 boys, and I just want to let you know, I thank God that, it was no father here, but I'm just want to let them know, hey, this is the way it's going to be. And if I can do it, a whole lot of other people can do it too. It's just the fact that you have to be, mind strong and try to go ahead and reach the goal. Don't sit and wander and think that someone's going to come and help you. Only person going to help you is the man up above. You definitely got to have God in. I don't know anything else.
Well, no, that's a whole lot. That's a whole lot. I'm sending you much love today. Thank you for being with us today, okay?
You're quite welcome. And this is my first time listening to this show, and I'm going to keep this, I'm going to keep y'all station on my radio. It's just the bottom line, because I want to hear more of what y'all have to say.
Yes, ma'am. We're going to have more of these conversations, and I want to thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, and God bless us all.
God bless you. Sending you much love.
Thank you.
Well,
have a good day.
God bless you, Miss Linda. Thank you. This is why we do the show every day, Dr. Deb and Tio. It's for Miss Linda that, she'll be channel surfing and she'll bump into this conversation and it'll mean something to her.
For sure.
And that's what this is for. Cosme, who do we have on with us now?
Hey, so I've been trying to get Mr. Chapman and Attorney Hoffler, but neither of them are responding. I called Chapman twice now and Hoffler once. I'm gonna try the Reverend next.
Oh,
yeah, 2 open phone lines right now.
Okay, well then I'm gonna have Dr.
Unless we take a caller right away.
Right away. I'm gonna
I'll get the last person up as soon as I can after that.
Okay, very good. I'm gonna go right to a caller. But
Okay,
I'm also
that lady's name I believe is Shaquila.
Shaquila? Okay.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, thank you. I certainly will ask her. But what I'm gonna do
30 seconds.
Okay. I'm gonna let you all go because you see we have limited lines, Dr. Holden. And Tio.
Okay.
But just stay with me as long as you can. Just stay right. Just work with me. Thank you so much.
Okay. No problem.
Okay, thank you so much.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 radio, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Want to hear your thoughts on violence today, on police violence, on violence toward police, on just where we are. We have lost a police officer, 29-year-old young lady, Ella French, and people have sent condolences all over the country, and the city is on edge. Chicago's on edge, but a lot of cities are on edge. And we want to talk about that today. This 29-year-old young lady, we're sending our love to her family today, sending her prayers as she ascends to heaven, and praying for her partner who is fighting for his life. And as these police officers stood vigil yesterday, they turned their backs on the mayor. To be fair, this problem did not begin with her. But certainly we can start to mend with her. How can we make that happen? Let's talk about that, everybody. 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. And I want to hear from you. I want you to talk to me. I want to hear from you. I want you to meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. I want to hear what you're thinking. I want to hear what you're thinking. And everybody like and share. Carol on the left coast, Carissa from Minnesota. Carmelita, did you teach my baby, Jonathan, my nephew, bless your heart, saying little sweet things? He's not so little anymore. He's now an adult. He's like about to finish college, unbelievably. But that having been said, sending you much love, John Cunningham, everybody, Andre, just everybody, Raphael and Vanderlei and everybody from Brazil, Fatou from the Gambia. So glad that you're with us today as we talk about these issues that are of such great import to us. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 91 degrees. Scattered thunderstorms. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 89 degrees, partly cloudy. The Dow closed down 108 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed up 24 points, and the S&P 500 closed down 4 points. Well, it was a blowout. The White Sox 11, the Twins won. Perhaps they will be able to seek, restitution. I'm not going to say vengeance today. The White Sox will be playing the Twins today, and of course, the Cubs will be facing off against the Brewers. What's going on with COVID? Well, a whole lot, everybody. COVID-19 cases among our children have been on the rise in the United States since early July, according to this CNN report. Almost 94,000 cases among children were added in the past week, the American Academy of Pediatrics has said, everybody. And indeed, now, as we're watching the Texas House Democrats, who are on the lam, if you will. They have sought refuge in Washington, D.C. at their own expense. They only make $600 a month, everybody, if you can believe that. $600 a month to be a Texas state representative. Well, that having been said, they are fugitives from the law because they are refusing to grant a quorum to the governor because the governor wants to further restrict voting rights. If you want to help support them, go to texaswalkout.com, texaswalkout.com. They're doing this at tremendous cost to themselves, to their families. Well, there's a judge in Austin who blocked the arrest of these Texas Democrats. Indeed, the governor, Abbott, of Texas has threatened to arrest them. And this judge has said, no, you cannot do that. So good for him. Even though the COVID-19 booster shots have not been cleared, many people are starting to get them. Can't wait to talk with Dr. Deborah Holden tomorrow about that to see if that is safe. We all want to be safe, but is that safe? Wow. According to this Common Dreams report, this ain't right. What ain't right? Well, during the second quarter of this year, the top insurance companies, health insurance companies in the United States made more than $11 billion. Now, let's see. One of the pharmaceutical manufacturers expects to make $33.5 billion this year. Everybody's making money, but people need to make some money. And now there's a young man who's refusing to get the vaccine, but guess what? He's been ordered by a judge in Ohio to get the COVID-19 vaccine as a part of as part of a 2-year probation plan. That or he gets the shot or he goes to jail. What do you think about that, everybody? More of the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk about what happened with Officer Ella French. What's happening on our streets? These two young men who have been arrested. There's another young man who bought the gun that killed this officer. Boy, oh boy. Let me go to you. Is it L from Old Town? L? L, how are you?
I'm good, doing great. Thank you. Thanks for taking my call.
Of
I
course.
just wanted to say that I'm really grateful that you're bringing up such an important, topic. And I really enjoyed your speakers, the ones that they were talking prior me, the lady who lived in Englewood and her frustration and all that. It's just, I'm really encouraged to hear this discussion on the phone. It's very important to me as well, even though I might not live in that neighborhood, but many of us have been there along the protest on the street when George Floyd, the most devastating happened, and of that nature of the police brutality. Not all, but that very few does create that image for the police. Now, here's what I wanted to say, though. one of the first line of actions for the police was to wear a camera, so their actions can be recorded. But here is the double-edged sword: is that everybody else's action can also be recorded. So I am wondering, how come a society, us, that went on the street and protested against the police brutality, how come we all the neighborhoods don't go on the street and protest against violence? Doesn't have to carry a racial component to it. It is violence in general. I mean, when somebody point blank shoots anybody else between the eye, I mean, police officers, that's a line of command. That puts another level of importance on it. But just in a level set, they didn't hate each other. She was at the, just calling out for the traffic stop. I'm just saying the whole action is it's violence. So why aren't we on the street and protest against it? We should all do that. And that has nothing to do with any racial component. If we would like to take that route, then yes, we will make it into a cultural issue. We will make it into a racial issue. But it is really a violence. It's not like the guns are hidden. The guns are easily accessible in our public places. And why is that? Who is responsible for that? I mean, I just think like this is to take action on that. And I'm so glad to hear what you have to say, your speakers have to say. And I just wanted to say something. You brought something very interesting up a few times. You mentioned about the life expectancy, the 60 in Englewood and 90 in Streeterville. I just wanted to say, looking at the life expectancy in Englewood, there are so many different factors when it goes into play of generating such a statistics. It can also be that neighborhood, people use it as a stage one, and then they move out because the neighborhood is really not safe, made for a family to grow older there. You know what I'm trying to say. So when we share, I'm just giving you feedback, when we share such comments with very young crowd in certain communities that seem to really not have access to take advantage of elderly advice, elderly community and grounding roles. So what are we really suggesting? I don't think you're suggesting anything, but I'm just saying, like, when a younger person who is really going through this whole, violence is the only line of action. And legitimately so, many people in that situation can have that as an option, and many people don't choose it as an option. But let's say that is their option as of now. No mercy on their own, same age, teenagers. It's just very, very painful to see all this happening. So what is it that we're saying? Because earlier on, last year, when we said, downtown has a lot more money than the other neighborhoods. The riot and and other things kind of took to the next level. It came out to be a reparation, which I really didn't appreciate that from a BLM local leader, who she was like very, convicted into just say for the it was not. And, the whole protest against the police brutality took a different turn in Chicago, which then it was corrected. But I'm just saying, if we want to address the issue, is this really about how many, the life expectancy, how are the young people receiving that? That's all. I'm just putting it out there. Just be careful about the information we're sharing.
No. Let me share this with you, Miss, because Miss L. This is you shared information. This came from the sender.
You and I'm telling you, I really enjoy your show, and I'm not saying you.
No, but
I'm just saying you need to be careful.
No. Let me share this with you. I accept all criticism and critique. I really do. But no, I do because this show is for you. I mean, look, as I listen to Miss Linda, as I listen to you, it makes it worth my while to get up at 2:00 in the morning to get ready for this. As I've been, because I sat here for like about 16 hours yesterday at the computer, trying to figure out what to look at. The reason, I mean, when you hear those numbers, they're jarring, and they ought to be. They ought to jar us into a reality of how we are living. We have got to get our young people to think more deeply. We have to begin to think more deeply. It is shocking that this not only happens in Chicago, it happens all over the country and all over the world. And we need to face that. And do our young people?
I'm not saying.
Oh no! I'm just trying to share with you my thinking on this, because editorially I have to make some decisions, right? Because I didn't have to put this into the show, but I said, this is a community under siege, And our young people already feel that they look at 18, 21, and 25. Tupac did that. What? What is that? I don't know if I'm going to make it to 18. I don't know if I'm going to make it to 21. I
Right.
certainly don't think I'm going to make it to 25. And if you look at these kids are living with this data every day, they see it. And they have the power to change that. Now, that's the other side of that discussion that I'm willing to have.
Well, so here I think we are underestimating the problem. I don't think these kids do. I mean, I think a bigger community needs to help out here. I think there is definitely a need for help, and I think we all can come together to come up with a solution. But somebody who's gone through this life experience, I can't talk on their behalf because I haven't experienced exact same thing. But it definitely requires like mentorship, something. These folks need to just come out of it, because if you're looking at from a religion standpoint, so killing another human being based on a revenge attempt is a sinful act that God will not forgive you. So if you're religious, then that is right there. You're in jail with God forever.
But Miss L, right? Many of us don't believe in God now, and not to mention the fact that we have and just remember our own policies. Our own policies, our political policies, we value war, not diplomacy. We drop bombs, not books. I mean, no. So this, Dr. King said that the bombs that we dropped overseas were going to explode at home, and that's what we're seeing. No one outbombs America in the world. No one is the greatest purveyor of violence. Dr. King said more than 50 years ago. It broke his heart to say it, and it broke his heart even more because it was true. Was the United States. We have a peace code. You can't completely. You can't register. You can go on and join. You can join the army, but the Peace Corps. Come on.
Right.
Come on. We've got to change that. But I don't want to get your closing thoughts because I got to get some other callers in. But I certainly want to hear you.
I agree. I appreciate your program. I'm a statistician myself, so when people use numbers, I have passion about it. So that's why I was just mentioning this, that the folks that we're talking about here that are creating such reckless decisions are really not the elder part of the 60 or the 90. They're really into teens and the 20s. So those folks, I don't, when you're in a certain state of mind, you receive certain data, you take your own very interesting decision towards that data. I'm just saying, kind of like maybe if we share those numbers, kind of share what you're trying to get in before somebody else trying to interpret what you were trying to say.
Sure. And when I first started on this station, I actually talked about this. I did. And this was.
So I was sleeping. I wake up early, but not that early.
No, it's okay. It's okay. But even if it shocks people and helps them to come into an awareness that this is true, then I've done my job. Because this is not a college lecture. This is it's just a radio show.
No, it's not. But it's also like you're an influencer. You are an amazing speaker. You are holding a great show, a very strong, opinions shared. And it's amazing because you can see all the other, spectrum, everybody's opinion. I'm just saying, again, I'm just trying to, as I said, earlier on last year when we were talking about the wealth imbalance or, the poverty compared to not poverty part of the city, the action that the younger crowd took was maybe the first time, acceptable, but the second time or the third time, it became kind of a really destructive, even in their own neighborhoods. It became destructive.
But I'm going to tell you, even then, I have to stop you there because coming out of the civil rights movement, and I'm going to have to let you go, Miss L. No, it's okay. Often, the only time Dr. King had violence in his march was when you had saboteurs from the government, from the intelligence community. We lead, coming out of the civil rights movement, the traditional civil rights movement, it's nonviolent. And so when it becomes destructive, you wonder, how did this person get in? How were they able to get into Gucci downtown? Are you serious? So I'm just saying, what we don't do is really look at history, okay? And I want to bring T.O. into this. T.O., I want you to respond to what you've been hearing from Miss L. And you, Dr. Deborah Holden, because I know you all are going to have to go. And Reverend, thank you so much for staying with us. But, I want to give voice to people who call. Tio, why don't you respond to Miss L?
Yeah, Ms. L made a couple of points. You know, the young man who killed the police officer, that was not racial. That was, like I said earlier on when I came on the show, that was a situation where a guy just decided to kill the police officer. You know, whether it was premeditated, that guy's a psychopath. No excuse for killing that police officer, period. I want to say that first of all. But now in regards to just organizing, something more needs to be done in Chicago, Baltimore, St. Louis, Memphis, New Orleans, Detroit. You know, the list goes on and on. Mm-hmm. We as Black people, we must deal with this elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is that a certain segment of our population, a lot of the younger guys, are kind of caught up in this here culture of violence. And we as Black men and Black women, professionals, and just everyday working class people, we have our work cut out for us, and we must step up to the plate and really help these young men navigate through life. Like the doctor was talking about, just making sure that your son or daughter makes it to 30 years old. That's major. And it shouldn't be that way. You know, you talk about the life expectancy rate due to the fact you look at the median income over in communities like Inglewood might be $35,000 a year. Then you have a whole lot of economic despair over there. You know, you just have a laundry list of problems associated with growing up, like in Inglewood, Roseland, the West Garfield community on the west side of Chicago, the same with Cherry Hill in Baltimore. So we, as Black leaders, we must do a little bit better in educating our people, the masses of our people, and always understand this. There's just a small percentage of the people that are breaking the law that live in our community. The majority of African-American people are law-abiding citizens. It's a certain segment of the population, Santita. So we must understand that there's been a lot of times in the media and on the news, they always show a lot of the killings, but start showing some of the successful young African-American people, men and women, Santita. That's my contribution here.
No, that's a big contribution, but we have to pressure them to do that because they shape a narrative that they want us to live up to or live down. And that's something that we've been fighting for a long time. You know, people have been doing this work, Dr. Deborah Holden, for years. Media education is something I lived through almost half a century ago as a child. Now, at some point, you can't just appreciate folks when they are dead and gone. And, look at what they used to do. I mean, we have folks who are working with us every day who show us how we can move the needle for ourselves. And we just need to go on and do it. Dr. Deborah Holden, I got a couple minutes for you.
Yeah, I agree. I think these are all good points. The one thing I want to say, though, is, you know, when we talk about violence and we talk about the culture of violence, I just want to make sure that we're very mindful, because I do feel like sometimes Black and brown people, we've had punishment so ingrained in us that we even speak it on ourselves. You know, you don't go in the white communities and their kids do bad things and then they say throw the book at them. No, they want redemption for their kids. They want drug treatment for their addicted sons and daughters. They want, you know, mental health for their violent, you know, nieces and nephews. But we are real fast to throw the book at our people, because I think we've internalized punishment, you know, because we came up in this country being punished. You know, so it kind of speaks to what the callers are saying. None of us are ineligible or unable to be redeemed or restored or transformed. So I just want to encourage people to think that way. It's why I think the work of T.O. and others is so important, because you actually got people on the ground floor. You know, it's one thing to talk about virus or to talk about what had somebody else do what they did or not do certain things. It's something altogether different to stand shoulder to shoulder with somebody and really understand their stress, their trauma, to understand what their needs are. You know, we literally always want to throw these kind of oversimplified solutions and problems. Now, you're old, and the older people are, the worse they are. Yeah, they can get a job at McDonald's. Well, who wants a job at McDonald's? I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. You can't live off of that. And it's not, so when you say these boys need to put down the guns and go get a job, and like, yes, and it's really not quite that simple.
No.
Some of it does have some simplicity to it, but the most important thing is the humanity. These are real human beings. These are our sons and daughters, you know, many of whom have come through conditions and environments that most of us really can't fully understand, because we didn't have that. You know, I tell people all the time, I'm not self-made. I didn't just wake up and pull myself up by my bootstraps and get to become Dr. Deborah Holden. I had a lot of help and love and support and nurturing along the way. Even though nobody else in my family had gone to college, I had a whole lot of people in my family and in my community and in my schools that were pulling for me and supporting me. It was almost like I got boxed into success. And a lot of other people get boxed into violence. They get boxed into drugs. They get boxed into school dropout. We talk about the, prison pipeline. If a kid could be in pipeline, there's a whole lot of stuff that happens on your way to prison.
Absolutely.
A whole lot of stress and trauma, a whole lot of experiences that people have that are very damaging and reinforcing for the kind of behavior that we're all working
1 minute.
So I just encourage us, let's not forget the humanity and that our sons and daughters are also redeemable and they can be transformed.
And let them be too precious to fail. The banks were too big to fail. Our children are too precious to fail. And our elders, everybody. We've got to change our thinking. And I want you all to continue to call me. Can't wait to have you back here, T.O. Everyone wants to know how they can get in touch with you. Of course, go to violenceinterrupters.org. Thank you, Lorraine, for putting that up there. Violenceinterrupters.org. And of course, Dr. Deborah Holden. We love you both so much. I'm going to continue this conversation. There's so much that you all have to say. I want you to continue to call me at 773-763-9278. I'm going to push these calls through so I can hear from you on the Santita Jackson Show. Dr. Deborah and T.O. go right now so we can open up a couple more lines, okay? Thank you. You made it. I'm sending you much love. Reverend Dr. Hatch?
Great.
Thank you. No, this was great.
Hello, how you doing? Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your patience. And of course, you've got your guy, T.O. Hardman, there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, Brother T.O., how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Good to hear from you.
For what you shared. Yeah.
Yep. Something drastic needs to happen, Dr. Hatch. You know that drastic time brings about drastic measures, okay? Sometimes on the positive side, though, we want to make sure we kind of recapture some of these young people out here to the best of our ability.
Well, and the old folks, too. We got a lot of people who need saving. So I'm going to get you all on. We're going to do something, I promise, because, these conversations are so, they're so loaded. There's not even enough time on this radio show to do that. So I'm going to send you much love and let you and UTO go, and got to let you, Dr. Deborah Holden, go, because I only have a limited number. I've lost a couple of lines, but sending you much love, T.O. Thank you so much, Dr. Deb. Thank you. Okay. And we still,
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
So we have 2 open regular lines, and then we have our green line still open. I'm kind of reserving the green line for Eddie Chapman.
Okay.
But Eddie Chapman is not answering his phone. I've now called him like 4 times.
No worries. What about Attorney Hoffler?
They're all up. Attorney Hoffler and the Reverend are up.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah. Okay. I got her. Very good. Attorney Hoffler. And we're going to go right into it, but I've got to, let me know what callers we have. I just want to be current.
Anita, and then we have Shaquila, and then we have D.
We have D, we have Anita, and Shaquila.
Yeah, and like I said, I think we should probably go to Anita first because she called in like at the beginning of the first hour.
Oh, no, trust me, I got it.
I got you. And then, yeah, she just wants to talk about, like, I think it was the healthcare system, and she also wants to now talk about gun violence, too.
We can't talk about both. We can talk about one. Okay.
I think she was mentioning gun violence, so I think she probably is going to.
Trust me, Anita's one of our faithful callers.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Well, we could bring her up then.
We'll bring her up.
Gotcha.
And let me just space this. Okay, thank you, hon. Thank you so much. And
about a minute 30.
Okay, thank you so much. You all, thank you a lot. A lot of people want to talk about this, Reverend Dr. Hatch and Attorney C.K. Hoffler. Why do you think people are so wound up? I've got about 30 seconds for you before we come up on the air. Reverend Dr. Hatch.
It's the reality people are living in every day. And so now, the
unfortunate killing of a police officer gives people an opportunity to have a conversation about something they're facing every day.
Oh, hold on a minute.
It's a very violent culture.
Oh, the whole thing is. Absolutely. Let me see. I've got to call Tio right back. Excuse me. Do we have another line, Coach May?
Yeah, we have like an open line. Yeah.
Call Tio Hardiman back, please. If
Okay.
you can.
Yeah, no, I'll do it right now.
Because he has a show, and I did not mention that, and I apologize for that. He's not answering, but just keep trying him. Okay.
You said Tio Hardman?
Yeah, the gentleman who just left.
Okay. Gotcha.
I just want to.
5 seconds.
Okay, thank you.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. We have a lot of people who want to weigh in on this violence in Chicago and this violence that we're seeing everywhere. It's a violent culture, everybody. WCPT 820 is the home of the Santita Jackson Show, along with AM 950 Radio in Minneapolis, St. Paul. This is a conversation. Please, if you isolate this call with my AM 950 Radio audience up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, it's the same thing. If we went to Baltimore, same thing. DC, same thing. Los Angeles, same thing. Mobile, same thing. Detroit, same thing. You just keep on going. What is going on? What is going on? Before we bring on Reverend Marshall Hatch and Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, brilliant theologian and pastor. And we have got, of course, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, the People's Attorney. She'll be on her own radio show this morning from 11 to 12. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central Standard Time on WAOK in Atlanta. Please tune in. And I was remiss. Please, Tio Hardiman, please forgive me. He has his own radio show here on the weekends on WCPT. Please support him. No one deserves more support than Tio Hardiman. He is just incredible. And he's also on another radio station, everybody. And it's great. We love Tio. Because we need to get the message out. But let me get a couple of these callers. And Anita, what's on your mind today? Anita, I need you to go right to violence in Chicago. Can you speak to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Our people have been trying to solve that for a long time. I remember coming home on the bus in Morgan Park and being worried about just being, robbed or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is, I don't know. But and you say that the dead people are not here, but they left an inheritance for us to follow, and to gain, history on where we don't have to repeat that again. And Elijah Muhammad was one of those that believed in the family. And I'm sorry, America doesn't believe in family. They have all these strange things, what they call family, that's not unifying or bringing the nation together. And Elijah Muhammad just said, hey, you can't rape people. You can't oppress people. You have to teach them to have a family. There has to be people there for the children. The children can't raise themselves. You see what happened. The police can't be used as disciplinarians. You know what I'm saying? Some of them have troubled backgrounds, and they may not relate well. So I think we need to listen to what Elijah Muhammad said, and America isn't listening. He did this for free for America. So America has no reason to blame the black community for what is happening now. It's the white community that refused to let these people have rights as parents and rights as family. They just keep taking from us. We can't take care of them while no one takes care of us. I mean, we can't work for cheap wages to make sure they have high wages. You know what I'm saying? Mm. And Elijah Muhammad just said, hey, a woman shouldn't be limited by how many children she has so that she can keep up economically. He never limited a woman for none of that. He just let her be a woman. And he said, I'll take more than one woman to show you that men can be responsible in a family and women can take care of their children. And if women want to have a career, that's okay too. But the children are also something you have to deal with too. The man does not carry the children in the womb, the woman does. So he's assuming that women can be a little more sensitive, especially in the tender years with children. And our women are at work.
So you think that women need,
the police.
so you're saying women need more support when they have families? I mean, because, you know, in other countries,
the right support.
They get financial support. They even get diapers, you know, and formula and things like that.
Santita. And they can't be talking about having children when a girl is 14. She hasn't learned how to even brush her teeth and make her bed up, and let alone learn all this progressive knowledge we have.
Okay.
You know, technology and all of this. I mean, you know, we got to think you don't have to be 30 to have a child, but you can't be just 14 when you're just now figuring out how to just have self-discipline about your own hygiene and things. And the world does do stupid stuff like this still.
Okay.
So I can't listen to the world on everything. I'm listening to Elijah Muhammad, and he also wanted a health center. And my husband worked on that, and I want mental health. He was worried about the mental health of Black Americans after slavery too.
So you're seeing a whole lot of problems. You're seeing a lot of problems that we have, and some solutions. Absolutely, because, you know, if we say we're going to be pro-family, we really need to legislate that way and behave that way. Let me go to you, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, because I know you are running today, but you've been with us waiting patiently. We've got a consent decree in Chicago. What is the consent decree? And they're saying that there's, you know, the data shows that there's not been a lot of movement on it. Would a consent decree mitigate this kind of tragedy?
Well, first of all, good morning, Santita. And you're absolutely right. There is a consent decree. The Justice Department, the U.S. Justice Department, 4 years ago, in response to the extraordinary problems with the Chicago Police Department and the killings, entered into a consent decree, which basically set forth a roadmap, if you will, for the Chicago and all the other entities to engage to bring about change and modification with the police department. And there's a monitor. So the actions were monitored to ensure that, in fact, there is progress. And based on the monitoring and based on what they've seen, there's been very little progress, very little community engagement, not on the level that they expected. And so the consent decree is when the Justice Department does issue a consent decree. It's almost like a ordinance, like a law saying this is what should happen, this is what we need to do to improve, modify, and change the trajectory of the tragedies that we're seeing in Chicago as a result of police brutality and other actions that are related. So the report is saying that it's woefully inadequate. The actions aren't working. There's not enough community engagement, and there needs to be more. So that's in a nutshell what the consent decree is, and where the team that's monitoring the progress has come out.
What are you seeing? CK, I've got about a couple of minutes before you go. We're seeing this explosion of violence everywhere, and it's very unsettling. Is there a solution? I mean, is it the guns on the street? Is it guns? Is it us? Is it both?
I think it's everything. So the solution, I think we need to continue to have the engagement from the U.S. Justice Department, especially now that we have the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights being Kristen Clark. Because, you know, every administration, when they issue these consent decrees, some of them are really engaged and some of them aren't. And so I think now that we have a Justice Department led by Merrick Garland, but more importantly, Kristen Clark as the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, I think it's important for us to continue to engage the federal government, but we can't just rely on the federal government. Part of these issues are our community problems. So our community groups, our grassroots organizations, our civil rights organizations such as Rainbow Push and others that are in the community and that, quite frankly, have the credibility of the community, have to continue to engage. But we also need our communities to look up and say enough is enough.
because these are young Black men and women who are dying every day, young Black women and men who are killing each other and killing our communities. And so we've got to look at it as a global problem. We also have to recognize that we are all in a state of PTSD. We're operating through COVID, but even before COVID, this problem existed in Chicago and in other urban areas. But COVID has made it worse. And seeing, George Floyd on TV killed, that 8 minutes and 46 seconds, which is the video that we saw. We didn't know about the 9 minutes and 29 seconds, but seeing that over and over and over and over again, a reminder to all of those people who have lost loved ones, this is what it looks like, is something that we have to deal with. So I think at Santita, we have to approach on all levels. We need the legal component because of the laws. We need to have modification. We need policing reform without a question. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. But we can't stop there. We've got to go to our localities. What's happening in the city of Chicago? What's happening in the state of Illinois, for instance? And we could say that for New Orleans and Louisiana. We could say that for Atlanta, Georgia, and Georgia. We could say that we could pick any urban area, Los Angeles and California. We have to have a more global approach and the different entities working together. And that's really the spirit of the consent decree. It just didn't take with the amount of power that it needed to take for there to be real solutions and that change with policing reform.
Attorney C.K. Hoffler, outgoing president of the National Bar Association, chair of Rainbow Push, brilliant lawyer, giving us some solutions, what we need to be looking at. Of course, we're going to continue to have this conversation over the next few days because it's something that people want to talk about because now people are literally afraid to go out of their front doors. Sending you much love, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, WAOK, everybody, down in Atlanta today. Go to WAOK from 10 to 11 Central Standard Time. You don't want to miss this Legal Eagles. Well, it's the number one show there. We are so excited. We're so excited for Attorney C.K. Hoffler. Sending you much love. Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch. Oh, thank you. Thank you always for being so available, even when you're so busy. New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church, one of the great cathedrals, actually. The largest stained glass representations of Black Americans is at that cathedral here in Chicago. Oh, you've heard a lot because you've been holding on and you've been so patient. Pastor, what are you hearing?
And I listen regularly. Well, I listen regularly, and thank you for this show. Thank you for this ministry, this service that you perform. Listen, I think that what we're hearing, obviously, there's the micro level and then there's the macro level. At the micro level, of course, we work with young men of West Garfield Park, right off the street, and I can tell you that fundamentally, we do a lot of programmatic stuff. There's employment, there's enrichment, there's a devotional every morning with these young men. We pray, and a lot of it is discipleship. And you have Dr. Dwight McKee on here, who's the dean of our project. Essentially what we're doing with these young men that seems to be very effective is, it's the corny stuff. We love them. And a lot of what we're doing is just finishing the job of parenting. So they look like young thugs, or they look like the unredeemable, or they look like, the lost. But like all human beings, these young men respond to love and care, and they respond to the things of the Spirit, and so it is. It's relational. It's daily. It costs money. It's part of an employment project that really is part of the hook. But I can tell you that we're finding real gems right off the street, these human beings with tremendous potential. And so some of us are doing this work at the micro level, and it's relational, it's one-on-one, it's daily. And church is different from having a program because the church is a total community that can just embrace a person and embrace them totally, and embrace them, without time limits. So the program is beginning and the program is ended. Church never stops, right? It goes on forever, and every Sabbath it's renewed. And so it's exciting to be a part of that in West Garfield Park where we are. But then there's this macro level, this culture of violence that is, that is very complicated because you're talking about history, the country. I mean, the national anthem is about bombs bursting in air. The national Independence Day is simulated warfare of fireworks all around us. And it's evolved into really an incredibly effective opportunity to kill somebody because, it sounds like gunfire everywhere, and the police obviously can't respond to that. I mean, this is ingrained in the culture, and guns have been flying off the shelves. And I was just writing down this is from North Avenue yesterday on the west side of Chicago. And right out in an immediate suburb, I saw a gun shooting range being constructed, which it used to be far out, but, coming close to it. And of course, gun range, they should shoot a gun and you can become more familiar with it, and more comfortable and desensitized in many ways. And so this is the culture that we're in, and we're probably in the middle of a civil war. I don't think civil wars are announced. I think we kind of gradually, incrementally.
We got to go to break in about a couple seconds, 10 seconds.
And so we can talk about the violence on the street, but it's the flip side is the violence at the Capitol.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. I'll be right back in a minute.
I was wrong, actually.
No, because I was about to say, Cosme, I think we have like 10 more minutes here. Almost 10 more minutes.
That's my bad.
No, honey, it's okay. But I have a new board op, and Cosme Lozano, and he is fantastic. And so what he's trying to talk, and the callers and everybody else, and he is learning on the job, and he's doing a fantastic job. My love to you, young man. And look, we got to learn. How about that? And thank you for being in my ear, because that's what I asked you to do that. But, stay right there, because I think that we are in the midst of a civil war. But no one wants to talk about it. And it's a civil war, it's a civil war about a lot of things. There are a lot of issues on the table. Civilizational issues, societal issues. I mean, we got a lot going on, Reverend. We have a lot, but let me bring, I want to bring on some of these callers, and I want you to react to them. I want them to benefit from your wisdom and knowledge, everybody. The pastor of New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. Boy, oh boy, if you have not been there, you're missing a treat. It is a cathedral, and the largest stained glass representations of African American civil rights and struggle are at that church. The largest in the world. You don't want to miss it. Go over there and give them your support. Everybody. And of course, listen to T.O. Hardiman on WCPT here every Sunday from 3 to 4 p.m. 3 to 4 p.m. Doubtless he will be talking about this. Let me see. We've got, is it Shakelia? Shakelia. Thank you. It's spelled that way, but okay. I want to do it correctly because, girl, people call me Santita, and that's not what it is. Shakelia. I understand Slavic names. So go on.
You're helping me to relax with that joke. I'm a little bit nervous.
No, don't be nervous. Why are you nervous? You have something on your mind, Shakelia. You've been holding on for a long time.
I really do.
Okay.
I really do, and I really have been.
Just talk to me.
I want to say good morning to Reverend Hatch, if he's still there.
Yes, he is.
T.O. Hardiman. Okay. Matter of fact, I went to school with Reverend Hatch at Weston, WIU.
Well,
all right. Yeah.
Okay. I want to hear it. It's not Whitney Young. It's not. I don't want to hear it. It's on HBC.
I know other people are waiting, so I'm going to go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
I was well encouraged by Dr. Deborah, was her name Holden?
Yes.
Yes. I was well encouraged by her comments about looking at the humanity of the young people, because, a lot of times we overlook that the dominant culture, they have things in place and they have resources for their community, and our children don't. And they make the same mistakes as others make, but the consequences for them are much different. I also was encouraged by Reverend Hatch's comments about the young people and the humanity in them. But I do want to tell you, I'm disturbed by the language I was hearing about the culture of violence and bringing in the National Guard. Every culture has violence. They talk about black on black crime. Well, there's white on white crime. There's Asian on Asian crime.
Well, you know that there's no such thing. All crime is intraracial. Yes. You kill the people you're close to. That's it. So, come on.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. And so to talk about our culture in terms of the culture of violence, that runs through, each culture, every culture.
Well, do you think it's an American issue, Shakelia?
I think it is. A lot of it is America because of the history of violence that America has. I do believe that, but there are some other things too that are going on past America. But I think that's a conversation for another day.
Okay.
But the bringing the National Guard,
you don't agree with that?
I don't agree with that, and he mentioned I'm not a fan of Lori Lightfoot, but when he said that her mistake was not bringing in the National Guard, I don't think that was her mistake. I think the mistake is not bringing in resources into our community. And the last comment I want to make is about like I said, I do send my condolences to the officer's family.
Absolutely.
That was a tragedy. What I'd like to know is what were the circumstances that precipitated everything? We are not getting the information, and that is making me suspicious. And are they putting together a story? The key words that really made my ears perk up was a traffic stop. So what was this traffic stop about? We've had a lot of traffic stops that have ended up in fatalities for our young black people. Was this a case of you versus me? I don't know that to be true. What I'm saying is there is no information around it to help us understand what happened. When you hear the story, you hear traffic stop, you hear police got killed, and then you hear the story of the police woman that was killed. You don't hear the details of what happened.
Now, let me ask you this.
Anyone expressing that?
Well, Shakelia, can you stay with me for a few minutes after the show, just for a hot second? Because we're going to, of course, because I'm going to extend this, everyone. We're going to continue on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, because I want to get your thoughts. And Pastor, if you could stay with me just for a little while, Pastor Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, brilliant theologian, professor, and of course the pastor of the New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. I urge you all to get on over there and see this magnificent cathedral and all of the work that he and the First Lady, I can't forget her because we love her. She makes you possible. And these wonderful children that you have got. I'm not laughing. You're laughing. I'm not laughing. It's not funny. She is a magnificent woman, and see, please give my love to the First Lady. I want you all to stay right here, and because Miss Shakelia, you're bringing up something, Pastor Hatch. I've got about 90 seconds before we end the broadcast here, but we're going to continue, everybody, on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. It's the suspicion, because there's so much going on out in these streets, if you will, Reverend Dr. Hatch. And she's saying, wait a minute, you got to give me more than what you're giving me. Can you speak to Miss Shakelia, your classmate?
And we absolutely, and we must be suspicious. I mean, yesterday there was a shooting, a killing, really on the block where my church's business office is, right yards away at the laundromat. And when the police came up, there were maybe 35 police. One black officer, lower level, and he looked so nervous, like he was just, trying to avoid getting shot in the back or something with some friendly fire later on the night. I mean, it's the skepticism because this department is so dysfunctional. I mean, and operates like an occupying force in our community. And of course, our prayers go out for the family of Officer French, young officer. But the fact is, this department is probably one of the most dysfunctional departments in the country.
Well, you know what? Stay right there. Stay right there. Because I want to speak that more on the side of the break because I'm about to come out on a hard break. But I want everyone to stay right here. Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, one of the world's foremost theologians. But what is so wonderful about him is that he practices all that he's taught and all that he is teaching. You've got to get on over to the new Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. And we cannot wait to see this documentary. Arnie Duncan, you working with him, and of course, Dr. D. Dwight McKee, and Mrs. Steve Jobs. She's produced a film about the magnificent work that you and Dwight McKee and Arnie Duncan are doing on the West Side. And we applaud that. And he has got some thoughts that I want to share with you on the Santita Jackson Show. Stay right here on Santita Jackson and Friends, Miss Effie and everybody else. Want to hear your thoughts. Mama D and D, we're going to get to you on the other side. Shaquilia, stay right there. Stay right there. Because we want to speak to your suspicions. We do. This is a big one. So stay right here, everybody, on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. Stay right here. More of the Santita Jackson Show. Right now and tomorrow on WCPT 820 AM and AM 950 Radio. Give us
an invention, but you.
Reverend Hatch?
Yes.
You were about to give us some statistics? And she can't hear about
52% of the Chicago police personnel live in 5 of the 50 wards.
Say that one more time, please.
Over half the police personnel live in 5 of the 50 wards.
Now, why is that important?
Well, it demonstrates that this force operates as an occupying force, particularly in these neighborhoods where we have most challenges. That they're nepotistic, cronyistic. I mean, the test is circulated around certain communities. These jobs are really deemed to be almost a possession of certain families, certain ethnic groups, particularly the Irish, who and the police themselves have this history of being an extension of the slave patrols. That history is ingrained, and it's ingrained in Chicago uniquely deeply. And so, again, I'm at a murder scene less than 24 hours ago, and I'm just looking, and it's like 35 police officers, 1 low-level black, and they're expecting cooperation from the community. But what I was hearing from the people that I was standing around was that they hear the shooting and they wait and let the person bleed out. Then they come later. I mean, so there's not a trust when you have a department that is so, so monolithic, so parochial, that comes out of just very identifiable neighborhoods where all of the police personnel live. And then our communities, our police values. Now, of course, Chicago, I mean, the situation is aggravated by the fact that it's a Democratic city with a Republican police force. These are Trumpers. One of the insurrectionists was a Chicago policeman that was just recently arrested. And so you have a police department divorced from the general population in terms of political outlook.
Well, let me ask you this: is this just as simple as Democrats and Republicans? Because you do remember that in the wake of Rodney King, Miss Shakilia, after that beating, people were saying we need police reform. Please, Senator Joe Biden came up with a police officer's Bill of Rights. I mean, to me, this crosses party lines. One thing, you want the police to have your back, you just don't want them on your back. The slave patrol, since this is how this all started, the police force, this is what we've got. And now we're living in a police state, right? So now it's a real mess.
Yeah, I mean, it's the trick bag that we're in, because one of the constituencies that the Democratic Party caters to, especially nationally, is out of police. Because they don't want to get flanked by the law and order crowd. I mean, but we get caught in that trick bag. I mean, you just mentioned the consent decree. The biggest barrier to any serious police reform in Chicago is the fraternal order police, the union of the police.
Wait a minute. Chicago, Detroit, L.A., New York. I mean, think about the police turning their backs, Shakilia, as I want you to engage your college mate. They turned their backs on her. They did that with Bill de Blasio, who ran on police reform and won. She ran on police reform and won. And people don't realize just how powerful the police are. Number one, these people personally protect her wife, and her daughter, right? So you are in a really, really touchy position when you're dealing with the police. It's like effectively they are her secret service, and they control this town. Pastor Hatch, you and I know it's true. Miss Shakilia, you know they're the kings and queens of the streets, right?
Yeah, I want to make a comment on what you said about the police. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Gotcha.
Santita?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you can? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I wanted to make a comment about what you said regarding the police turning their back on Mayor Lightfoot. I heard on MSNBC a conversation that was real interesting about the police turning their back on the police officers that were protecting the Capitol on January 6th. So if they don't do that for them, then you know they'll do it to Mayor Lightfoot. The FOP did not support calling them insurrectionists. In fact, they have been quiet throughout this whole discussion of the insurrection, letting you know that they are silently protecting those insurrectionists. And so their goal, or their culture is a culture of maintaining white supremacy. And Reverend Hatch, I really like that insight that you just, that insight you have on the way the demographics of where the police live, how it affects their relationship to our community. You know, they're centralized and they don't have a relationship. And it's that culture that they are just feeding on and living in.
Well, but you also made a point. Before I let you go, you're not getting enough of the story, Shakilia. What is it? There's something about this that doesn't pass the sniff test for you. Please explain.
Well, we think about Sandra Bland, we think about Castile, Orlando Castile, we think about all of those police stops. There's so many of them now that, just so many of them now that police stops and Black people automatically is a red flag. And we know how records get changed and how they take time to create a story. So if it's factual, if you are giving the facts, you don't need time. You just repeat what happened, and it is automatic. There's no, you don't need any turnaround time. So why is that? Why are we not hearing the story?
I don't know, but I think it's interesting because Renee Criswell pretty much said that she said, what did she say? What did she say? She said in response to you, Ms. Shakilia, she said the car was already parked according to news reports. And it was curbed with expired plates, with plates costing us so much. She said that's understandable. So why did the police approach them? Did a police officer fire his gun too? There were 3 police officers, weren't there? I mean, hey, there's a whole lot, but there are so many moving parts here. Ms. Shakilia, I wanted to give you
so many questions to
yeah,
ask.
yeah.
Who fired first? All we know is police stopped and the police were killed because they were shot. But what happened? What's the whole story? And why? And even more important than that is, why wasn't the whole story told as soon as the story was told?
Mm-hmm. Well, then, you have to shape a narrative. Come on, girl. You know what's going on. That's the thing.
That's really serious, though.
No. I mean, it's not a hilarious laugh. That was a rueful laugh. Like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. And so when you ask about trust and things like that, it's like, come on, you guys. You got to be trustworthy, worthy of my trust. You need to tell the whole thing. And with the FOP giving cover to so much malfeasance, it becomes problematic. But then I don't want to see. When I think of this young lady's family, look, I've got siblings. And I've got nieces and nephews, I've got godchildren. You can't. The thought of this, and I mean, I have one godson who's looking at becoming a police officer. And I have to tell you, and he has the highest aspirations. My heart just dropped when he said that.
You know the whole story. Those young men too have families.
Yeah.
And they have families that they could have eventually have children, and so they have a life as well.
You're right.
You're right. Lives are equal. And one other thing I wanted to add is that the media is working with the police department and the way that this story is being not told.
But Shakilia, hold on.
They're not asking questions. They're not asking the questions.
Shakilia, they're on the same team. If you look at television, you have police shows. You have shows about firefighters. You do not have shows, or rarely do you have a show about someone who is the victim of police brutality. That comes on cable. Okay? And then they turn, I mean, you don't hear, that's, you feel me? So I'm like, we need to be real about, okay? They're all on the same team, all of them. So we need to be clear on that.
So I guess the next thing is, what do we do as a community? How do we deal with knowing that they are on the same page? Very
quickly, get involved in organizations, because you can't do this alone, okay? Get involved in organizations and continue to push, and then get involved in more organizations and encourage these organizations to work with each other. That's what needs to happen. But you also need to engage. You need to be media savvy. You need to send email. You need to call and say, hey, wait a minute, where's this? And you need to organize your friends and say, you know what? I have 3 questions I have for you. What about this, and this? And trust me, every email they get, every phone call they get, and Reverend Dr. Hatch knows this, they say that represents X number of viewers or listeners. So that's why you have the obligation to call and to let them know, I see you. And they respond to social media, and you don't even know who's out here on social media, but you understand what I'm saying? These are the things that you have to do. And you just have to stay vigilant and stay involved. Democracy, even this form of government is a very mature form of government, and it requires that everybody, every citizen be involved. You can't just go to work, and I hear you, we're all on the grind, but you can't just go to work and leave it to someone else. When you leave it to someone else, this is what happens. This is what happens.
Santita, I have an idea too. I like what you just said. I have an idea about how Black folks can get stories out that are relevant to our community and how we can get more truth out. I wish the churches would synchronize. I don't know if synchronize is the word, but get their news, their bulletins on the same page so that it's like the press is, what is that called? The APS or the
Associated
APS,
Press. Well, you know what? Speak to Pastor Hatch. Because Pastor Hatch, I mean, a church bulletin, are you saying that it should include more than the sick and the shut in?
Exactly. And that there be some stories that run throughout all of the major churches.
That's a great idea.
One too, but the churches pull their bulletins together and like have some stories that are the same, and that we have our own defender through the churches.
Absolutely. Well, Pastor Hatch, why don't you speak to? She is making a great point. Can I get some information? Yeah.
Sure, you sure can.
And Effie Rolfe, you know, the legendary broadcaster, said that one email and phone call. I love you, Effie, because she stays with me every day. And she said it represents 10,000 people. Wow. Stay right there, Shakilia. And Cosme, if you will, I want to get Shakilia's information. Okay? Okay, thank you so much. Shakilia, if I'm going to put you on hold because I need to get a couple of other calls before I have to run. But what do you think about that, Pastor?
The other callers hung up, actually,
okay.
So it's just Shakilia.
Okay, well, Shakilia, stay right there. What do you think about that? I mean, she's saying that because our churches, we invest so much in them, our emotional, financial, spiritual energy. She said, wait a minute, when I pick up the bulletin, I ought to be able to find out about the sick and the shut in, because that's important. But I need to know what's going on in the community, right? Scholarships, whatever it is. I need to know. You need to be able to tell me something, right? Pastor Hatch?
That's absolutely doable. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, now I can.
Are you there?
Uh-huh.
Okay. No, that's absolutely doable. And in fact, that's right-wing churches have been doing that for years.
Hey, you know what?
Insert.
What is it, Joyce Myers? You used to be able to go on her website and get registered to vote. Do you hear me? I'm on her website and you've got this boy. People have been talking about Reverend like he has a tail. But it's because he was so successful at organizing our people in churches. Because that's where we are. So what are some of the solutions, Reverend Hatch? I mean, you've heard, I mean, because in fact, we haven't been able to get to all the calls today, but I want you to have the final word here.
Well, you know, as I shared earlier, you know, and as you shared, I mean, you have to get involved. We have to get involved in groups and organizations, which is what churches are. Churches are organized people with organized resources and often very usable facilities. So, you know, all community organizers gravitate to churches because it's good to have a community meeting every week. And so, you know, these are, you know, spiritual organisms and also vehicles of social change on behalf of the kingdom of God. So, I mean, the church is a very effective place to be a part of a faith community. But then you have, you know, civil rights organizations, social justice organizations. Many of us, you know, support those as well, and I'm part of those. You know, your dad mentored many of us, and that's how we learned how to do what we're doing in terms of social justice, because your dad took time and mentored us personally, spent time with us, taught us, trained us, developed us, discipled us. And we talk about all the time, we feel like we're grandchildren of Dr. King because Dr. King did the same thing for your father. So, you know, so we have to pass down what we've received. And so that's the kind of work that we're doing with the Mafia Redemption Project. You know, we're finding leaders from many of these guys that have just come off the street, and we're discipling them. And so that daily work being involved in the organization or a project or a program that's, meeting immediate needs and developing relationships. But then there's that macro level that we were talking about. And I was saying that I think we are already in a civil war, and that there are two competing visions for what the country's going to look like. And those visions, it's going to be altogether one or altogether the other. And so we see this reaction that Donald Trump is just really a representative of, a nation that's going to either balkanize and become an apartheid system where voting rights are restricted and a minority controls a majority, where the corporations run amok, where there is a wide disparity of wealth and wide disparity of life expectancy, as you've been talking about, and quality of life, spiritual decay. All of the things that Dr. King saw when he said we must choose either chaos or community, or we will become, again, in terms of community, some fashion of a beloved community, of a multiracial democracy, of a more just system, of a system that puts the poor and the least of these first, which is, theologically, the kingdom of God arrives whenever those that are in the margins become central to public policy. That's when the kingdom arrives. That's what Jesus means. The last shall be first, the first shall be last. And so these two competing visions is what this country is wrestling with now. And we have to engage this fight. We've learned from your show that there's some 400 voter restriction bills moving through state legislatures all across the country. And there's a fight. There are people going to jail. We must stay in this fight. And so, and our ballot, our registering to vote, our participating, our looking at the midterm elections coming up, the local elections. I think we all learned that leaders matter and who these public officials are matter. And so get in this fight of your generation, of your lifetime, so that you can help shape the future that our children will live in. It's an incredible time to be alive, quite frankly. And you got to believe spiritually that God has brought us into the kingdom for such a time as this. This is our Esther season to be in this fight. And it's a fight for the future.
Amen to that. A fight for our very lives. Robert, you said you noticed that when Laquan McDonald got shot in the back 15 times, 16 shots in a cover-up. Certain folks on social media say he should have complied. Yeah, people complied, then they died. That's what happens on our side of town. And he said this is the same good Catholic Christians that say forgive because slavery was a long time ago, even though I rode on segregated trains and buses going to the South twice a year to visit both sides of your grandparents in Mississippi. You know what? I don't think they want forgiveness as much as they want an excuse, a get out of jail free card. Because forgiveness is a process, right, Pastor? I mean, it's, you got to be sorry, you're really genuinely sorry for what you've done, contrition.
John the Baptist said you got to bring fruits. John the Baptist said you got to bring fruits meet for repentance, meaning that you can't have reconciliation and forgiveness without reparation. It's going to cost.
Yes.
If we're serious.
I mean, and so people are not serious. People want an excuse. They want Black people to give them a pass. They know they've been wrong. They know they've been wrong to the indigenous people. They know they know it's wrong for women to make less than men. All these folks know this is all wrong. But forgiveness is a process. It requires some real work. It requires a balancing of the scales, and people don't want balanced scales. So when all this talk about forgiveness, Pastor, I am sorry. Yeah, I mean, make it the fair distribution of it. I'm not averse to wealthy people, but you know what? Reverend Clay Evans, my pastor, said, I've never seen God make a mouth he couldn't feed. No one's supposed to starve, and you're not supposed to get it all.
Is obscene.
This is crazy.
And it's unsustainable
Absolutely.
as well. I mean, anybody that understands, economic theory knows that when you have the concentration of wealth and power at the top, that becomes unsustainable. The wealthy know that the pitchforks are coming. But the greed just continues to drive a system that is going to implode, and that's why often we've used government as a bulwark to regulate the excesses of capitalism that basically will implode upon itself. I mean, basically, Franklin Roosevelt saved capitalism for another generation by co-opting socialist policies.
And and
mainly Social Security.
Well,
And
then we moved to Medicare and Medicaid. I mean, the thing is, and all of these systems really that are mature are a mix. There's no pure system at all.
One of the most damaging things was this Citizens United piece, and I wrote a book, Project America, came out in 2012. Much of what we see, and I prophesied it. But what that did was it brought so much money into politics that it upset a balance. The government was often used as a counter balance to the power of wealth. J.B. Pritzker, do you know how long he really wanted to be a politician? But it was always difficult before Citizens United and the culture shifted. It was difficult for a billionaire to run for office because the people saw the government as the balancer for the little guy. And now you have to be a billionaire to run for governor.
That's right.
And the last governor's race was 2 billionaires against each other. And poor Chris Kennedy, who might have made a decent governor, he was a mere 100 millionaire. I mean, he couldn't compete. And so I mean, it's just it's obscene.
Of course.
And so now in this environment, Donald Trump became president, flying around with an airplane with his name on it. And so there is something tragically, spiritually, that has gone wrong, even in our politics. This worship of wealth and decadence and the idolatry of money. I listened to you yesterday. I thought you did some incredible preaching, Santita, about people selling their souls, for money. And all that means in terms of the decadence of the culture. And so it's just, at the core, there's going to have to be a spiritual reckoning for the whole system. And of course, we have to deal with the truth ultimately.
Amen to that.
And again, getting back to what I think. I mean, the kingdom of God. Jesus said, as you've done unto the least of these, you've done unto me. And so it is always true. When the poorest people, when the people in the margins, when their interests become central to public policy, the kingdom of God arrives and everybody flourishes.
Amen to that.
That's always God's solution.
And that's what Jesus fought for. Jesus was a revolutionary, and he was killed by the state with the people's permission. Don't ever forget that.
Yeah, you don't get crucified just because you bless babies and perform weddings.
And throw out rose petals. That's not what happened.
Yeah.
No. He was charged by the state.
Somebody in power saw you as a threat, saw your movement as a threat.
Of the churches,
and
the churches and the government colluded.
Organized religion.
That's right.
And the imperialists.
That's right. So, I mean, but it's the same thing that we're doing now. You know, I mean, so the thing is, President Trump he's not, I don't think he's as wealthy as he purports to be, but the thing is, you have to look at the people behind him, the people who wanted him to be president, and the people who want everybody to be president. You know, I mean, because look, no one got more Wall Street money than President Obama. So, I mean, we have to decide what we have to decide. I'm not mad at anybody. That's how the game works, okay? But what we have to do is we have to make decisions about what it is that we need. And we need to decide that we're going to get what we need before we get what we want, okay? You don't get dessert first. You get the meal. So we have to make some decisions. We have to grow up in our politics, grow up and get what you need. The rest will come, but get what you need. And you need to make a decision about whether you want to be in a monarchy or a republic that wants to move toward being a democracy. Make your decision now. Abraham, to you, yes, I am the daughter of Reverend and Mrs. Jesse Jackson. You're from Venezuela. We love you. We love you. You know, my father's been there with you, and we are in solidarity with you. God bless you. Thank you and good morning. And I hope you will, this will not be the last time that you will listen to our show. And I hope that you'll let me know what's going on down there because we're praying for you. Broke my heart to lose your president, but I'm so glad about the president that you do have and send him all of our love and support. I hope that you do know that because we are all brothers and sisters down there. One of the great things about President Chavez, he was someone who was of African ancestry, and he acknowledged that. And it was something that he did not, and he wanted Brazil to embrace that part of themselves. Venezuela. And that's like, it's been like a struggle. I mean, because Reverend has a lot of admirers in South and Central America because there is a movement, an awakening of the African diaspora who are down there. And so I want to give Abraham much love. I want to thank you for listening to us today. Somehow or another, we're beginning to percolate in that part of the world, and I'm so glad about that. And let me know if there are any stories that you would like for us to cover coming out of Venezuela. Please do that. But I'm sending everybody much, much, much love today, and I want to thank you for all that you have done, all of your support. In a special way, thank you, Chaparral. She's still on. I don't know if she's still there. But Chaparral and Marnie got me up today. Boy, I had a mess. I kept checking in, and it was just crazy. Wouldn't have been able to make it without them. I can't make it without them and you, Lorraine, and everybody else. And Pastor Hatch, I want to thank you for your support and your words of encouragement. You're always so encouraging and so kind. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, with all of my heart, for all of your love and encouragement.
Absolutely. Thank you for all you do, Santita.
Oh, thank you for all that you do. And thank you for being so patient with us. But I was trying to give the callers, I think you can understand this, and we weren't able to get to all the callers. I was trying to let them talk. Because there's something about this killing. There's something, it's happening within the context of now, right? All the things that we have going on. Mm-hmm. And I just felt that these people, I could hear the urgency in their voices, and I wanted them to be able to speak. What did you hear before we go? What did you hear?
I learned so much from listening. There is just a tremendous amount of distress. Mm. And I really appreciate how you care about people. And the woman who just you didn't want her to leave until she had some level of calm.
Yeah.
But you could hear in her voice such love for the people. And such a deep, passionate desire that we could do better. I think that, and when that conversation went, I thought it ended up in a great place. Just touched on. We got to deal with the levels of damage that has been done by this history that we have come through, and we are dealing with a very, very damaged people. I was sharing yesterday that I stood out on the scene because I said, this is just, we had a murder in the laundromat, but these cops from Beverly and everywhere else, now they come, and so this whole industry around our misery, and you can't, the people on the street are not convinced that these people care at all.
An industry around our misery. Golly.
Oh yeah. And you live in a community now here where we are that is outside of a civilized criminal justice system. So a lot of this is retaliation because people are not getting justice. With a 17% clearance rate, Chicago Police Department.
Yeah.
So murderers are walking around. People are taking matters in their own hands. It's totally dysfunctional. Then you have this police department that is an occupying force, that is divorced from the life and the culture of the community. And so it is just, it is a dysfunctional context that has a lot of history behind it, though. And so I think that, helping people to appreciate some of that context is what your show does well, because at least people can, with some clear-eyed, decisiveness, say, okay, this is what I can do, and do what I can do, and do the best I can do, plug in locally, plug into the larger movement in the country. And so instead of just being depressed and discouraged about it, information and context, understanding context, can help move people into action. And I think that's why, it's such a great show. And so I was listening today. I just have to be listening on the line. And many days I'm listening off the line. So it's the same as, a normal morning, being able to listen to people. But yeah, your heart goes out, because people are in a great deal of pain.
Oh, Pastor, I couldn't let Miss Linda go. Because look, this stuff will make you can get so worked up you have a heart attack. That's the silent killer. I just buried my best friend. Okay, 52. She had just turned 53. She just turned 53.
52.
Heart attack in the middle of the night. There's so much that we are carrying with us every day. So much pain, and she was so worked up. She said, she was channel surfing, and I bumped into your show. I've never listened to it before. Oh, wow. And I heard what you're saying is resonating with me. And to hear her so wound up, I said, no, I can't let her go. I wouldn't, she would have been on my mind all day. It's just all day.
And the power of the gospel that we preach, people have to have hope above all.
Yeah.
Reason to believe. And that's, that deep tradition, Reverend Clay Evans, who is mine from afar, and almost lost my mind when I walked in the broadcast after, meeting him through push, and then after American Leader Partnership, where many of us went to school in the corner, and he called my name. Oh my God. I almost lost it,
Oh boy, I miss that man.
Oh my God, but that tradition, that organic theology of Yeshua, of Jesus, being born a colonized person of color in a far-flung province of the Roman Empire, and overcoming that empire by the power of God, and the way the preacher rehearses, his passion, his death, burial, but then early on Sunday morning. I mean, the therapy of that, being at the center of your religious and spiritual being. I mean, I tell you, we got to have hope, and we got to see that God is with us, which is what, Jesus said, if you believe in God, believe also in me. In other words, if you believe in God, but can you really believe God loved us enough to become like us so that we could become like God? to visit us. Not the one that created and walked away, but the one who is involved with us, who is Emmanuel, God with us. There's a tremendous power in that, and that is the power of resistance to all of these forces that people get caught up in. I mean, I was sharing it again out on the street, doing some teaching in the middle of a crisis, of a murder at the laundromat, and remind these police, and you can see they're just very basic white people. So you can't get worked up about these individuals because in many cases they're caught up in the same quack system. I believe ultimately that, because I got engaged in a conversation with a cop, and he said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, what I really think is that we need to reform the Chicago police. I mean, everybody should be fired and have to come back for their jobs." And I said, it's not unrealistic because Camden, New Jersey, that's what they did in Camden. And there are several cities. There's reformation and there's reformation. And the Constitution of it. I mean, do you know why the FOP is really so retro and bad? Because a significant part of their constituency are retired police. It's a major voting bloc. In other words, they don't even police anymore, but they remain a part of the union, and they're a major voting bloc. That's why you end up with this Nazi, Katazawa, who, Kevin, I think his last was previous guy. He wasn't far right enough.
Wait a minute, we don't have to go to Nazis. We can just go to the plantation. We don't have to leave the United States of America for anything. Okay?
Yeah.
We don't need a European example. We got that. We lived through the worst that humanity can offer up right here on these shores.
Yeah, the chief overseer.
I mean, and Native Americans got genocided out. So I think they passed us on this one.
Yeah.
Okay? Whew. I'm just saying. I think,
Yeah. But something very unique happened in Chicago, and I think at some point we probably need to appreciate the fact that a lot of what we saw was a reaction to Hell Washington, which is why Chicago is so unique and an outlier in some cases. Is because the black community absolutely had to be contained after that revolutionary movement.
But
the first thing they did, remember, was change to a nonpartisan election.
Of course, but this is
that was all to make sure that didn't happen again.
Remember, this is the center of American politics, and the Jackson campaign was born out of that because we asked Kennedy and Mondale not to come in and get it. So, but that's the power of Chicago politics. That's why Barack came here. He didn't go to New York. He didn't stay in New York. He didn't go to L.A. He didn't go to Detroit. He came here because they knew, all the people he's been working with knew the possibilities that if you could make it in Chicago in politics, this is the hot spot, everybody. This is it.
And Chicago, though, Santita, was the center of the black world.
It still is.
Jet, Muhammad, your dad, Nation of Islam, everybody came here, and it had this incredible black economic base. You talk about Tulsa, that we could actually finance a chief executive, so that when we put Harold in, Harold belonged to us because it was not just our votes, but our money. It was Ed Gardner's Come Alive, October 5.
Oh, remember, we had to make him run. Remember,
we gave the world, we gave the world Soul Train. Soul Train was a high school show in Chicago.
That's right.
What high school you go to, Don Cornelius? And so that community, this power structure in this town had to dismantle that after Harold.
Well, the thing is,
because Harold actually, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, he was the beneficiary. Because remember, he was a machine guy.
Yeah.
And he was the beneficiary.
Yeah, he was a machine guy.
And he helped And he helped to do some of the dismantling, unfortunately. But the thing is, it's not been completely dismantled. No, I mean, because when you take when
it was about a
but when you take Lou Palmer off the radio, you're hurting yourself. And when you try to muzzle, Congressman Gus Savage, you're kind of hurting yourself. And then he didn't make it into his second term, which was hard. That was devastating. We have not seen the success because behind that, Reverend kept on running and making history and changing American politics from 83 through 88. And the thing is, there's a whole lot that still needs to be done, but you got to decide that you don't want a plantation system anymore, which is what we've got. So you choose or lose. If you still want a plantation system, you can have that. But we're going to have to make some decisions about being free and having liberties. How about that? So let us do that. Let us do that. Because let us see what we've done right. Let us see what we need to correct. Let's do that. Because the fact is, we can still register people to vote. You now have black people in power, but you have black faces in high places, but have things really changed? That's what we have to make those decisions. No. Yeah, some things have changed, other things have not. So what we have to do is get over. See, because my politics, I don't do that. I don't do it like that, Pastor Hatch. I've got to see who I like and what your politics are. And then I can support you. I don't care what your color is. I don't know your background. I don't care about that. I want to know if you have a heart to serve the least of these, period. All black folks are not into that. All white people are not opposed to it. Okay, so you're going to get my support. If you have a heart for the least of these and you're going to work on our behalf, you got my support. After that, you got it, Chief. And I just think that we have got to grow up in our politics, okay? And just stop.
I mean, this focus on skin color and melanin. That's how we got Clarence Thomas.
Oh, look, yeah.
He played the race car.
Look,
we got played.
He played well, and folks fell for it because he played a white supremacist race card. He didn't play my race card. He played another one from another deck because they sent him. They made him. I got it. But we fell for it because he's black and he'll understand. He'll understand what? Overseers on plantations were black. That doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't. It doesn't mean let me put it this way. It doesn't mean everything. It doesn't mean everything. So you need to find out who has a heart. When I see it just our laps was Beto O'Rourke's dad. We saw them. I mean, he was organizing for us in Texas in 83 and 84. He was a big judge down there. And had very interesting politics, real progressive. So there's a picture that's gone viral, Pastor. I'll send it to you, of Beto and Reverend from 1984. And then they reprised the picture a couple of weeks ago in 2021. Reverend was hugging Beto, and Beto must have been about 13 or so. He was a kid. And so, I mean, all I'm saying is, and then Willie Nelson and Jim Hightower, these were white folks who were with the proposition. I'm with that. And then some of our biggest foes were black people. Look, I'm over that. Let's have some principle-based politics here, everybody. Now, either you want Chicago to work for everybody or it's going to work for nobody, ultimately. Either Detroit, Mumbai, London, you can just keep on going. Either the world's going to work for everybody or ultimately it's going to work for no one at all. I'll give you what my mama says, Pastor Hatch. My mama says, you can't hurt me without hurting yourself. It's that simple. You can't help me.
All tied together.
Come on.
In a single garment of destiny, right?
Come on now, tell me what you say now.
Whatever affects one directly affects the other indirectly.
Okay.
We'll live as sisters and brothers, or we'll die as fools.
And that's it. And before we go, I want to give my love to Abraham Arcila Carreño, is it? from Venezuela. He's been sending all of this love to Reverend Jackson today, and I'm going to let him know that you have sent your love to him. Indeed, he was the last person, Reverend was the last person to speak at President Chavez's funeral before the current president eulogized the president. Such is the honor that they have given Reverend in Venezuela. That is our home too, Abraham. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And he said, world. Oh, absolutely. You said you hope that Reverend Jackson knows that from here in Venezuela, he is remembered with great respect since he supported, that's right, we supported President Chavez in their fight, and we still support you. We're still supporting you. We're still with you. In fact, Reverend was down there with President Chavez when Katrina hit. And President Chavez organized, you remember this, Pastor Hatch, 2 or 3, I think, Marine hospitals.
When the president, he sent oil to the poor.
Absolutely.
On the Northeast in the middle of a cold snap.
Absolutely. He said, take it, give it away to the poor.
At the UN.
Oh, wait, look, the sulfur. I smell the sulfur. I love that man.
I smell it still here. Standing in the sky, standing in the
Oh my gosh. I said, this man, when my sister met him, she said, oh, I think I found your husband, Santita. I said, really? And she said, oh boy, he's a piece of work. I said, I love him. I love him far. Yeah. He said, I smell the sulfur. Oh my gosh, bless his heart. Oh. I'm going to run, but you are just terrible. Shame on you for remembering that devilishness. A preacher would do that. A preacher. Remember. Oh, I can still smell the sulfur.
Standing right there.
Oh. Oh gosh, help me, Lord Jesus, help me, help me, help me, help me. You know, the last place I need to be right now is sitting here with a preacher. So quick, I don't get anything. Just terrible.
Kendrick Lamar, we're gonna be all right.
No, we're gonna be all right. I love you, Pastor Punch. And I can't wait to have you back.
Not here.
Minus the sulfur. Minus the sulfur. I'm like, did he just say that? Oh, give my love to all of our brothers and sisters down in Venezuela and invite them to come along and let us know what you want to talk about. If there's an issue you'd like for us to talk about here, because we're all connected. We're all connected. We're all connected. And, you know, we have a lot of mischief going on in Venezuela, but you know there's some people who support your freedom and your liberty, and we are among them. I want you to know we are in solidarity with you, Abraham. Sending you much love. And I'm going to tell my father today, as soon as I get off of here, I'm going to go see him, and I'm going to let him know that you reached out to me because of your love and respect for him. I thank you for that. Thank you for that. That moves me greatly, touches me so. My father's been on the battlefield for 60 years. Bless his heart, and he just keeps on trying. And don't you stop. And don't you stop, Pastor Hatch. Sending you much love. And like I said to the First Lady,
Amen.
Give her my love first, please.
You. Absolutely. Certainly, we just had our 38th year anniversary. And you know what I did? I found a gift card to put in her card, and the gift card said, just married.
Oh, bless your heart. Oh.
Yeah, so moving along.
I love it. I'm making the heart with my hands. I love it. Bless your heart.
All right, God bless you.
God bless you, and thank you for being with me today. You made this all work. And happy anniversary. Saying happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary. Love you so much.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you too. You too. God bless you. I love you, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Oops, I guess I should have come this way, huh? Okay.